Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar, How CITGO Saves Time and Increases Quality with SAP Business Process Testing, hosted by SAP Insider and presented by Worksoft. My name is Steve Paul. I'm your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. This webinar is designed to be interactive between you and our presenters, and later in the program we'll ask for your feedback. You can participate in our Q&A session by asking questions about the information presented in this webinar at any time. Just type your question into the Q&A text box located below the speaker bios on the left, and then click the Submit button. We'll answer as many questions as time permits after our presentation. Slides will advance automatically throughout the event, and you can download a PDF copy of our presentation by clicking on the resource box in the bottom left of our console. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up blockers. If you're having any technical problems, please visit our webinar help guide by clicking on the Help ? Icon on the bottom right of our console. And if slides are not advancing, please press the F5 key on your keyboard to refresh your console. And now on to our presentation, How CITGO Saves Time and Increases Quality with SAP Business Process Testing. Discussing today's topic will be Penny Easter, Senior Information Analyst Supervisor with CITGO. Penny has held the role of Senior Information Analyst Supervisor since 2007, after spending 13 years supporting several business areas at CITGO. An SAP Power user with proficiency since 1999, Easter's areas of expertise include hydrocarbon materials management, sales and distribution, and SAP Master Data. We also have with us today Rainer Musier, Vice President Marketing with Worksoft. Rainer has more than 20 years of experience in marketing and product management for venture-backed and public technology companies, including software businesses in enterprise systems, automation, trading, optimization, and modeling for operating companies. Now, first we'll hear from Penny.
Good morning. This is Penny Easter. Thank you all for joining us today or tonight. I would like to welcome you. We're going to talk a little bit about how Worksoft has helped CITGO fuel some time savings and ensure quality for our automation. First, I'd like to introduce you to CITGO and give you a little background information. Then we'll look at the CITGO landscape, some of our IT business needs and drivers for the functional test automation. I want to walk through what CITGO's approach was to doing the automated testing, what some of our results were, and then some of our next steps going forward. For those of you who don't know, CITGO Petroleum is the sixth largest and most complex independent U.S. refiner. We have 3 refineries, one in Lake Charles, Louisiana, one in Corpus Christi, Texas, and one in Lamont, Illinois. We have a combined refining capacity of 749,000 barrels per day. We have business in 27 states with more than 5,500 branded retail stations. We have 48 petroleum product terminals that we do business with, and we have 9 pipelines. We also have 3 lubes blending and packaging plants, which are in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Cicero, Illinois, and Atlanta, Georgia. In 2014, we sold 14.8 billion gallons of refined products. This is kind of a visual picture of CITGO's architecture and landscape for our SAP ECC6. We do have development that we do. We do much of our testing and use Worksoft. What we're using Worksoft for is our testing through our ECC6 system. Currently, we have about 50 people in our IT department that run our test scenarios through this landscape, and we do this one time every year for each new release. We take everything that we do and we test in the sandbox. We test in our development system. We test in staging 3 times before we ever move anything to our production system. The scope of business that we cover for our IT department and the functionality in SAP is for our product supply and crude supply departments, which include trade capture and hydrocarbon scheduling, hydrocarbon inventories, exchange and terminaling agreements, pricing, crude supply, product supply, and petrochemicals and lubes. We also have marketing, which includes the support for marketing for all of our products. We have refining, where we actually support our refining refineries, their plant maintenance, non-hydrocarbon procurements, work orders. And then we also support corporate systems such as the general ledger, our accounts payables and receivables, any of the accounting systems, payroll, and HR. And then we also have our terminals and pipelines area where we get our activity from the terminals, which is pushed into SAP, where we process our billing from all the movements that happen at the truck racks and our different terminals across the United States. In our IT department at CITGO, we're a little bit different than some companies. A lot of companies have a test group, and a functional group, and then programmers. At CITGO, we are all one and the same. Our IT analysts are our testers. They are our functional analysts that build out the specs for programming, and they are our programmers. So the 50 people that we have working in SAP cover all of those functions, and they support all of these CITGO key business processes, capital asset management, EHS, our finance and controlling, manufacturing. All of these areas are covered by the 50 people in IT that support SAP. We have work streams that go across functions and units, such as security, HR, finance, hydrocarbon, master data, and materials management, lubes, non-hydrocarbons, sales and distribution on our racks. And our rack is the truck activity that goes through our system. Each of our IT personnel are specialists in all of these areas. We touch all of these areas in our support for our business unit. So as you may realize, we spend a lot of time not only supporting, because we do the functionality of a help desk, taking in the business needs on a day-to-day basis. We also spend 4 months out of our year doing testing. So this takes us away from our business support on a day-to-day basis. So because of this, we started looking for a tool to help us with our automated testing. We needed a solution that could validate our CITGO business processes in order for us to avoid disruption for business and improve the quality of deploying our SAP software. Because we do a release every single year, we have 52 people in our IT department who are tied up with testing. And because we do a thorough round of testing, as I said, we go through our sandbox, our development, and our staging through 3 iterations of testing. That takes a lot of our time, and it usually takes 3 to 4 months out of the year. So our time is spent at least 4 to 5 hours a day, each day, doing that testing and not spending time helping the business improve their critical processes and improve the quality of their work. The automation platform that we need has to be user-friendly for us and for our business analysts, because at some point we would like to be able to push out that testing tool to our business folks so that they can do some testing when they're running through scenarios, whether a business scenario would work in the system or not. They might be able to use this tool to help work through those a little faster. So for our business needs, these are very critical points. The drivers for our automation and looking at Worksoft was because we needed something that we could quickly build and maintain complex end-to-end tests. The current system that we had, we spent time doing transactional testing. So we would create a sales order, we would create a delivery, we would create the invoice. Instead of doing an end-to-end complex test that would take all those things in one transaction and complete the test. We needed to mitigate risk due to technology changes. We need to improve the quality of our testing. Obviously, if we have people manually testing things year after year, and month after month and test iteration after iteration, we may not be paying as close attention by the 5th iteration of testing that we should be. So this automation would give us that capability to always have the same quality of test as in the sandbox as we did at the last testing going into our production cycle. We needed to maintain the integrity of all our existing systems. We needed to reduce our testing cycle through each upgrade. Spending 4 months every year was just not a smart way to do business anymore. We spend a lot of time doing testing where we could be doing things for the business and project improvements. That gives us the rest of the year to, to crunch and try to meet deadlines that are really hard to meet when you're spending 4 months out of your year testing. We want to increase the level of our formal testing on other projects and support. Currently, if we have a project, our IT people are testing the system to make sure any new project works, and then we're also supporting that in the follow-through after it's gone to production. Allowing us to do formal testing for those projects takes our manual steps out, and that was a big driver for picking the Worksoft certified product. And then we need to deliver significant savings and efficiency to our business process validation. In our IT department, besides being our help desk and tester, functional analyst, and programmer, we also spend a lot of time training employees on how their business process are supposed to work in the system. This tool would allow us to do some of that work for us because it has the ability to create training documents as well. So we spent a lot of time trying to decide how we were going to implement the Worksoft system and transfer all of our current test scenarios over to the new system. We decided the best way to do is to have an organization structure team established so that we could say there's specific rules for how we set up our test scenarios, because currently in the past our test scenarios have always been just kind of however the analyst wanted to set up a scenario. If I was in charge of doing exchange accounting test scenarios, I set those up how I would test them, not necessarily how would be the best way to test. So we decided to set up a team that has 4 governance group members. Those members made the final decisions and checked off our final test scenarios. Then we had 9 subcommittee members, including 2 Worksoft administrators, to set up the attributes of the system, update the roles administration, the monitoring, and coordinate the upgrade to our Worksoft platform. We decided to have governance on the naming standards of each of our scenarios to establish a standard variable for naming conventions. For example, we maintain our automated SAP scenarios by transaction codes, automated SAP test scenarios with child processes. We also had some manual SAP scenarios. We have main automated SAP scenarios for integrated processes that go from module to module. So we wanted to have specific scenario names and standards for those, as well as our automated HR and non-SAP scenarios for our MarketNet system. And our MarketNet is an internet system that CITGO has built for our marketers, where they can create orders and monitor their products. And we needed that to be able to integrate into our SAP system. This Worksoft allowed us to do testing with the outside system as well. We made sure to require certain fields in the Worksoft tool so that we could differentiate between the process attributes. We made sure that the members of each team would review and approve the test scenarios to make sure that they meet all the standards that we set for naming and covered all of the existing scenarios that we had in our previous system. We also developed reporting criteria because at the end of each of our test iterations, we report on how many scenarios we tested and what the outcome of those were. And if there was any scenarios that didn't pass, why they didn't. And we needed a way to document and report that. So we developed reporting, which was in an Excel-based report, which made it very easy and user-friendly for us to build our own reporting standards. We had to train members of on the Worksoft certified tool. So we had Worksoft sent in a trainer for a couple of weeks. I guess it was about 8 weeks total. And we scheduled time. Each of our groups of the testers scheduled time with the Worksoft person to go through and work through some of our scenarios to see how the tool worked and what would be the best way to test end to end. So each group scheduled time with him and was mentored through about 8 weeks of our first build. And then we also are using this approach of process improvements. Are there better ways to test? Are we testing things that are not needed to be tested? And is there a better way to do a business process? We're looking at that as we go through this testing scenario and our approach of building out the scenarios in Worksoft. Excuse me. Before moving to a production folder, all of our team leads look at all of the naming conventions and required information for each scenario to make sure that we're consistently moving everything we built into the production folder as we stated the government's rules are. So each team lead verifies all of our test scenarios before they go to the production folder to be ran in our test iterations. We have 2 folders. One is our CITGO development, and that's where our analysts go in and build out the scenarios. And then our production folder is the master file of all the scenarios that we test for each iteration of testing. Worksoft gave us a lot of automation capabilities. We were able to integrate end-to-end testing across applications. We did data-driven testing. We could use record sets, so we weren't having to set up a lot of master data in the system to be able to create test scenarios. A lot of times for us, when we were in our development testing iteration, we would have to set up a lot of master data to be able to even test current test scenarios because our DV1 system is not a copy of production. We were able to pass data across different processes. We had dynamic capture of the runtime generated data, which we could watch the test run, which is really nice. There was just a lot of automation capabilities that the system was able to handle that singly we were not being able to capture a lot of data. We have screen capture and automated process documentation generation. That was a big deal for CITGO because we actually train our end users on how to use the system. So as we're going through test scenarios, we can actually create desk manuals on each transaction with screen captures and automated process documentation that we don't have to manually do, snippets and type in data for. It actually would go through the system and show exactly the steps that are needed. And a lot of times we don't keep our processes up to date because we don't have time to go back and do that kind of generation of documentation. So that was a big deal for my group especially. We were able to dynamically generate real-time test data, reusable test asset creation. The biggest thing for us too was there was no programming skills required with Worksoft. You could come in as a business analyst with no programming at all and be able to create these test scenarios, which made it very nice. And we hope to be able to use that going forward with our business clients. Some of the results that we have for our business process coverage, CITGO is using Worksoft to automate the functional testing and processes to support key areas like sales, purchasing, supply chain, inventory, and more. We have 45 to 50% of our tests to support highly critical business processes have been completed. 769 of the 1,910 business process scenarios were covered in 8 weeks. Those 1,910 processes are the scenarios that we would test for each iteration of testing for each release every year. The previous testing that was conducted only once a year with Worksoft, now we were able to use these test scenarios when we're doing programming changes. If we do changes that are going to affect a report or a transaction, we can run these test scenarios to make sure that we have not affected anything else on a week-to-week basis. We're not just once a year having to go through and manually test things. This allows us to find defects possibly in our programming, as well as assuring quality before we move things to production in our production environment. This has been very helpful as well. It speeds up our testing process in our day-to-day work when we're trying to change programs or problem solve in transactions. Our testing time has been reduced from weeks to days, hours to minutes. What would normally take us 4 months to test with the scenarios that we've built out so far, we should be able to reduce our testing time at least by half. CITGO spends 3 months out of the year to test releases. We're on track to cut that effort this year by 25% or more with our automation. Our goal is to hit about 80% if we can. We have some scenarios that we're not sure that Worksoft will be able to handle, but we're going to continue to work with Worksoft to go through those. It's a learning process for us. Automation gives our analysts their time back to focus on strategic processes, and that's a big deal for CITGO because we do have a small IT team, and because we do wear so many hats. Giving our analysts time back to do actual programming for projects is a big deal and allows us to use our creativity and our knowledge for something positive instead of running test scenarios over and over again. The initial project for Worksoft does require some effort, but above what we're doing day to day with the manual testing, it's worth the effort, I think. You're investing time up front that you won't have to invest every year, and we'll be able to use those test scenarios on subsequent projects coming in the future. To kind of describe some of our efficiencies and time saving by the work stream, our lubricants and hydrocarbon process group, our goal is to automate 85% of the 1,060 test scenarios we had by reducing the number of analysts needed to test and the accuracy of testing. If we have automated tests available, each of my analysts would not have to test. We could assign that to somebody who is a test group analyst for the year, and they can run all the tests without having to involve every single analyst we have. Currently, I have 14 IT analysts that run the full set of tests for 3 iterations of a testing cycle each year in an SAP upgrade. An 85-step business process with Worksoft is completed in less than a minute. I don't have any analyst, no matter how good they are, that is able to do a business process that has 85 steps in less than a minute. We had a lubes process that was a 400-step business process that was completed within 2 minutes. So that kind of gives you an idea of the savings of time that Worksoft allows with these automated scenarios. Our initial results is we've converted about 10 to 15% of our test scenarios and subsequently removed 2 of our FTE weeks of testing through the efficiencies that we've gained with Worksoft. We, again, are hoping to increase that this year. We actually implemented Worksoft during the middle of one of our test cycles, so we thought that would help us build the cycles or build the test scenarios as we were going through the test cycle, which made it a little slower process than probably if we would have just done it building scenarios all by themselves. Worksoft Certify is also being used for day-to-day program testing. I have one analyst who uses his scenarios every day when he's doing the run the business activities to support his business areas. So that's been very helpful. Our non-hydrocarbon process group, they have a goal to automate 60 to 70% of their 850 test scenarios into approximately 50 Worksoft work process tests. This will result in 3 FTE weeks of testing. that cuts it way down from what we had before. Approximately 10 full-time equivalent weeks of testing per cycle is what we were doing currently. So if we can take those 10 FTE down to 3 and reduce the life cycle of our iteration testing, we have saved tons of time. Our initial results for the non-hydrocarbon group is they were able to convert 15 to 20% of their test scenarios and remove 3 FTE weeks from their testing. Again, this is a work in progress for us because we had so many scenarios and so many people involved, and because we're trying to refine our testing to build out scenarios that make sense, not just copy what we had before. We're looking for ways to improve our testing cycles as well. In addition to the automation, Certify allows CITGO to test more wisely and spend more time on the critical process oversight instead of just running random reports to make sure that they still work. So that's been a big deal for us. Our end result is we have more thorough testing for the allotted time given to each test cycle, and we should be able to reduce the time we spend on each test cycle as well. For CITGO, our next steps are we want to further our automation and business processes that were not covered during our initial project. And then we want to tie together scenarios that make sense for an end-to-end business process test. So that if we bring on a new line of business or a new customer that's going to be handled a certain way, we can actually test that process from end to end instead of creating, a 85 or 400 step process for that business. And then we want to expand the automation use beyond SAP. Currently, we are using the Certify tool mainly for SAP, and then also for our internet MarketNet interaction with SAP, but we hope to be able to use it for some of our other external testing that we do, such as EDI and some of our third-party applications. I'm going to turn it over to Reiner so he can talk to you a little bit about Worksoft.
Hey, thank you, Penny, and congratulations on all your success in these projects. Well, everyone, it's a wonderful example of what so many companies face, which is an enormously complex enterprise landscape that includes SAP but goes beyond SAP, a high rate of technology change that's driven by the need to innovate and also driven by the business units. Gartner talked about this in their November Magic Quadrant, where they said technology is firmly embedded into business processes, and so quality becomes a higher focus and critically linked to business success. Testing is becoming a more strategically important area, and there's no doubt about it. They go on to say, unless automation is used, it is not possible to fully work in an agile or DevOps manner. It's just not possible. As Penny said, you just can't keep up with the change without automation, and that's obviously what we're talking about here, which is automation and high-speed business process testing. In business process testing, the automation needs to be business process centric. It's got to cover the whole process end to end and every supporting enterprise application. You need to be able to reach what we call industrial scale. That means covering your business and checking everything, whether it's monthly, every month, every week, every day if you like. When you can test 100,000 process steps in a few hours, you're there. Now, to reach that scale, you need to be able to build your automation fast, which means it needs to be easy and efficient, because if it's not, you'll never reach 90% plus coverage of your core business processes. If it's tedious and if it's expensive, you'll be stuck at 10 to 15% coverage and you won't move beyond that. Now finally, to make all this really work, you need to bring together the business units and IT in an effective way through a collaboration platform. And so there you have it in a nutshell. That's what Worksoft is looking to enable for companies like CITGO and for so many others as well. So that's all I wanted to say. So Steve, let me turn it over to you now for some questions.
Okay, thanks very much. Excellent presentation. Before we go on to our audience Q&A, we'd also like to ask our audience to please fill out the feedback form that is now going to appear on your desktop. To complete this form, just press the Submit button, and we want to thank you in advance for filling out this form. Your participation in our survey allows us to serve you better in the future. And now on to the question and answer portion of our event. As a reminder, to participate in the Q&A, just type your question into the text box and then submit it, and we'll answer as many questions as we have time for. So let's see, a couple of quick ones right here. First off, let's see, from George, can we get a copy of your 400-step user process?
I can check into that. I'm not sure that I'm allowed to give you our 400-step process, but I can definitely look into it and see if there's a way to pass that along. Okay, great.
And then we have a question here about what is an FTE week anyways, please.
An FTE is a full-time employee week, so full-time employee, full week's pay.
I see. Okay, great. And let's see now here. George was wondering when is the demo?
Hi, yeah, I can take that one. For anyone wanting a demo of the technology, just send me an email. My contact info is up on the slide there, and we'll be glad to set something up for you.
Okay, excellent. And let's see, for Penny, has industry pressure and the drop in oil prices created more desire for automation and efficiencies?
I don't know that has been a driver for us. CITGO is kind of a lean company anyway. We don't have a lot of extra people to do a lot of extra things. So any automation that we can do helps the current personnel be able to handle their workloads better. So that was really where, we started looking at the automation prior to the downturn in the industry and the oil prices. But I'm sure that some other companies that might be a driver to be able to create automated processes when you're in that kind of a bind.
Okay, and let's see. I think we have time for one more question. Penny, what are your plans beyond testing SAP applications, and what enterprise systems are next?
I think what we're going to try to focus on next is our EDI testing. That's really another big test that we do each year with our SAP. We have to make sure the EDI is integrated. So we'll be looking at that probably next.
And actually, we could probably squeeze in one more here from Pierre. How many IT SAP analysts do you have? Over 50?
We have 52 SAP analysts that cover all of our SAP programming and testing. Okay. And they also, as I said before, we are the help desk, the functional analysts, the technical analysts, and the testers. We cover all bases.
Great. Now, just wanted to remind our audience, a couple of people were having a little bit of an issue with the survey, so that is pushed out again for you. Please complete our feedback survey. We greatly appreciate that. And again, for more information, you can refer to the contact information that is appearing before you. And we didn't get to your question during this live session, and someone will follow up with you over the next few business days. So I want to thank you all for attending today's webinar, How CITGO Saves Time and Increases Quality with SAP Business Process Testing, hosted by SAP Insider and presented by Worksoft. Shortly after our live event, we'll send you an email reminder so you can access this presentation on demand. And on behalf of our guests, Penny Easter, Senior Information Analyst Supervisor with CITGO, and Rainer Musier, Vice President Marketing with Worksoft, we want to thank you for your time. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar, How CITGO Saves Time and Increases Quality with SAP Business Process Testing, hosted by SAP Insider and presented by Worksoft. My name is Steve Paul. I'm your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. This webinar is designed to be interactive between you and our presenters, and later in the program we'll ask for your feedback. You can participate in our Q&A session by asking questions about the information presented in this webinar.